Mira adjusted the straps of her survival pack as she carefully stepped over the uneven ground of the alien planet. The air was thick with the scent of damp soil, and the trees around her stretched high into the sky, their dark leaves rustling in the soft wind. It had been 3 days since she arrived on this uncharted world for research, studying its plants and minerals for potential human use. She had always been fascinated by space exploration, and this mission was supposed to be simple: gather data and return home. But something felt wrong today. The silence in the forest was too deep, as if every creature had disappeared. A strange feeling settled in her chest, a warning she could not ignore. Mira reached for her communicator. "Control, this is Mira. Something is." Before she could finish, a loud buzzing sound filled the air, and a shadow passed over her. She turned sharply, her heart pounding. A massive alien craft hovered above the treetops, its dark metal surface reflecting the dim light. Mira's instincts screamed at her to run, but she was already too late. Bright energy beams shot from the ship, surrounding her in a glowing net. She tried to move, but her body was frozen in place. A wave of dizziness hit her, and the last thing she saw before blacking out was the ship's doors opening, revealing tall, armored figures. Mira woke up to the cold feeling of metal beneath her. Her head throbbed, and as she blinked, her vision slowly cleared. She was inside a dimly lit room, its walls made of dark steel. A single red light flickered on the ceiling. She was sitting on the floor, her wrists bound by metallic cuffs. She tested the restraints, but they were tight, refusing to budge. Taking a slow breath, she forced herself to stay calm. Panic wouldn't help her. She needed to understand her situation first. A deep, rough voice echoed from the doorway. "Awake already, human?" Mira turned her head. A tall alien with dark gray skin and glowing yellow eyes stood before her. He wore heavy armor, and his sharp claws tapped against the metal floor as he approached. He was Zoreth, a species known for their ruthless nature. She had read reports about them, but she never thought she would meet one face to face. The Zoreth commander, Selger, crouched down, looking at her like she was a mere insect. "You are in a prison ship of the Zoreth Empire. You will tell us everything you know about human technology." Mira met his gaze without fear. "I don't know anything valuable to you," she said, keeping her voice steady. Selger let out a low, amused growl. "You humans are weak, yet you think you can resist us." He leaned closer. "You will talk, one way or another." Mira said nothing, but inside, her mind was racing. She needed to gather information about this ship, about her captors, and about how to escape. She would not allow herself to become a helpless prisoner. Selger stood and signaled to a guard outside. "Take her to the holding cell. We will begin soon." The guards grabbed her arms and pulled her to her feet. Mira clenched her jaw. This was only the beginning. But if the Zoreth thought she would break easily, they had made a terrible mistake. Mira walked forward as 2 Zoreth guards dragged her down a cold metal hallway. The cuffs on her wrists glowed faintly, making sure she could not escape. The ship hummed with energy, and the air smelled of metal and strange chemicals. She kept her breathing steady, her mind focused. Panic would not help her. She had to observe, listen, and plan. The guards pushed her into a small holding cell. The door slid shut with a heavy clang. The room was dark, with only a dim blue light on the ceiling. There was no furniture, no windows, just cold steel walls. Mira sat down slowly, her back resting against the wall. She closed her eyes for a moment, thinking about her situation. The Zoreth wanted information. That meant they wouldn't kill her immediately. That was her only advantage. She glanced around the room, searching for anything useful. The walls were smooth, no visible panels or weak spots. The door had a security pad outside, and she could hear the guards speaking in their deep voices. Their language was rough and guttural, but Mira had studied basic alien languages during her training. She focused on their words, trying to understand. "Weak creature," one guard muttered. Waste of time. Just scare her, said another. Mira's lips pressed into a thin line. They thought she was weak. They thought she would break easily. That was their mistake. Some time passed before the door opened again. Selger, the Zorath commander, stepped inside. His yellow eyes glowed in the dim light, filled with amusement. "Comfortable?" he asked. Mira said nothing. She just looked at him, waiting. Selger chuckled. "You humans are strange, so fragile, yet you act strong." He moved closer, towering over her. "Tell me about human military technology. We know your people have weapons that could challenge us. Give me information, and I may let you live." Mira tilted her head slightly. "You captured the wrong person," she said. "I'm just a scientist." Selger smirked. "A scientist who travels alone to dangerous planets." Mira shrugged. "Research is important." Selger studied her for a moment. Then he turned and walked toward the door. "You will talk soon, human." "Everyone does." The door closed behind him, leaving Mira alone again. She took a slow breath. They wanted her to be afraid. That meant she had power, small, but still there. She had to use it. Hours passed, maybe longer. The Zorath did not feed her, but that was expected. They wanted to weaken her. Mira sat still, controlling her breathing. She had been trained for this. Mental endurance, resisting pressure, staying focused. She listened carefully to the sounds outside. The guards changed shifts every few hours. The ship had a low vibration, meaning it was moving. They were taking her somewhere. Then footsteps approached. The door slid open again. A different Zorath entered. A scientist by the look of his uniform. He carried a small device in his hand. The guards stood behind him, watching. The scientist knelt in front of her. "This device reads pain levels," he said in a calm voice. "We will test it on you." Mira kept her face blank. "Sounds like a waste of time." The scientist ignored her. He pressed the device against her arm. A sudden sharp pain ran through her skin, like fire crawling over her nerves. Mira gritted her teeth but did not cry out. She forced herself to breathe through the pain. The scientist frowned, adjusting the device. "Strange. Your tolerance is higher than expected." The guards exchanged looks. Mira saw it. Doubt. They had expected her to scream, to beg. But she did not. The scientist stood up. "We will continue later." They left her alone again. Mira let out a slow breath, her heart still steady. She had won this round. She had learned something important. The Zorath were not invincible. They had weaknesses, overconfidence, arrogance. They underestimated her. Mira smiled to herself. That was their biggest mistake. She would use it against them, and when the time came, she would escape. Mira sat in the cold, dark cell, her wrists still bound in glowing restraints. The pain from the device earlier had faded, but she knew the Zorath were not finished with her. They believed she was weak. They believed she would break. But they were wrong. She listened to the sounds outside. Heavy footsteps, deep voices speaking in their guttural language. The guards were changing shifts again. The ship hummed with energy, moving through space. Then the door slid open with a hiss. Zelger entered, followed by 2 guards. He studied her with a smirk. "Still strong, human." Mira met his gaze but said nothing. Zelger chuckled. "You will talk soon. I promise you that." The guards grabbed her arms and pulled her to her feet. Mira kept her expression neutral as they led her down the hallway. The walls were dark metal, pulsing with faint red lights. The air smelled of oil and machinery. She was taken into a larger room, its walls lined with strange alien devices. A metal chair stood in the center, cables running from its sides. Mira clenched her jaw. They were going to test her again. The guards forced her into the chair, locking her arms and legs in place. The metal was freezing against her skin. Selger stepped forward, holding a small device in his clawed hand. This will make you more cooperative. He pressed the device against her temple. A sharp electric pulse ran through her head, making her vision blur. Pain spread through her skull, but Mira gritted her teeth. She would not scream. She would not give them the satisfaction. Selger watched her closely. "You are stubborn," he said, "but that won't last." He increased the power. The pain grew stronger, like fire crawling through her nerves. Her muscles tensed, but she forced herself to stay calm. Pain was temporary. Her mind was stronger. Minutes passed. Selger's smirk began to fade. He expected her to break, to beg. But Mira only glared at him, breathing slowly through the pain. The guards exchanged nervous glances. They had never seen a human resist like this. Selger growled and pulled the device away. "Enough for now," he said, frustrated. Mira let out a slow breath, keeping her expression blank. She had won this round. The guards unlocked her restraints and dragged her back to the cell. As they shoved her inside, one of them muttered something in their language. She didn't understand the full meaning, but she caught one word: fear. They were beginning to fear her. Good. Mira sat against the wall, her body aching, but her mind was clear. She had learned important things. The Zorth relied on their technology to control prisoners. They thought pain was the best weapon, but they didn't understand human willpower, and they didn't realize she was studying them. She had counted the hallways, the doors, the number of guards. She had listened to their conversations, picking up pieces of their language. Every detail mattered, because soon she would fight back. More time passed. Hours, maybe. Then the door opened again. This time, it wasn't a Zorth guard. A different prisoner was shoved into the cell with her. He collapsed onto the floor, breathing heavily. His skin was a deep blue, his arms covered in faint glowing patterns. Mira moved closer. "Are you okay?" The alien groaned, opening his golden eyes. He studied her, surprised. "You are human." She nodded. "And you?" He coughed weakly. "I am Dren. My people are at war with the Zorth." Mira frowned. "Why did they bring you here?" Dren's expression darkened. "They want to break me. But I have seen what they did to you." His eyes held something new: respect. "You are different from the others they captured." Mira smirked. "I get that a lot." Dren sat up slowly. "You are planning to escape, aren't you?" Mira's smile widened. "Yes." Dren took a deep breath. "Then I will help you." Mira had been alone before, but now she had an ally. And together, they would turn the tables on the Zorth. They thought she was weak. They were wrong. Mira watched as Dren leaned against the wall, catching his breath. His blue skin was covered in bruises, and his golden eyes flickered with pain. But beneath that pain, she saw something else: determination. He was not broken. "You said your people are at war with the Zorth," Mira said, keeping her voice low. "That means you know their weaknesses." Dren nodded slowly. "I have fought them before. They are strong, but their strength makes them arrogant. They think no one can defeat them." Mira smirked. "That's their mistake." Dren studied her carefully. "You are not like the other humans they captured." Mira shrugged. "I don't give up easily." Dren gave a small, tired smile. "Then maybe we have a chance." They sat in the dimly lit cell, whispering their plan. "The ship is moving," Mira said. "That means we're not near any planets. If we escape, we need to control the ship or find a way to send a distress signal." Dren nodded. "The control room will be heavily guarded, but there is another way." Mira raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "The Zorth have an energy core that powers their ship," Dren explained. "If we disable it, they will lose control of their systems. The lights, the security doors, even the weapons, they will all shut down." Mira's mind raced. "And in that chaos, we escape." Dren nodded. "Yes, But getting to the core will not be easy. The ship is full of guards. Mira smirked. Then we'll have to be smart. Hours passed. Mira and Dren waited, listening to the guards outside. They had to be patient. One mistake, and they would lose everything. Then, their chance came. The guards outside the cell were talking in their rough language. Mira caught a few words. Shift change. She nodded to Dren. Now. Dren groaned and collapsed to the floor, his body shaking. Mira rushed to his side, pretending to panic. He's sick, she shouted. Something's wrong. The guards hesitated. One of them stepped inside, his glowing eyes narrowing. What is happening? Dren suddenly sprang up, using his last bit of strength to grab the guard's arm and twist it. The Zorath grunted in surprise, but before he could react, Mira lunged forward, slamming her elbow into his throat. The guard stumbled back, choking. Dren snatched the energy weapon from his belt and fired. A blast of blue energy hit the second guard, knocking him out. Mira grabbed the fallen guard's keycard. They were free. They ran through the metal corridors, moving quickly but carefully. The ship was massive, with twisting hallways and high-tech doors. Dren led the way. The energy core is this way. Mira followed, holding the stolen weapon tightly. Her heart pounded, but she forced herself to stay focused. This was their only chance. An alarm suddenly blared through the ship. The Zorath knew they had escaped. Mira cursed. They're coming. Dren pointed to a nearby ventilation shaft. In here. They climbed inside, crawling through the narrow metal passage. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed below as Zorath guards rushed past. We need to move fast, Mira whispered. They reached a large circular chamber. In the center, a glowing blue energy core pulsed like a heartbeat. This is it, Dren said. If we destroy this, the ship will shut down. Mira scanned the room. There must be a control panel. Dren pointed to a console on the far wall. That's it. But we have a problem. Mira followed his gaze. Two guards stood in front of the panel. We need a distraction, she whispered. Dren thought for a moment. Then he picked up a small metal piece from the vent and tossed it to the other side of the room. The sound made the guards turn. Mira acted instantly. She aimed the stolen weapon and fired. The blast hit the first guard, sending him crashing into the wall. Dren rushed forward, tackling the second guard before he could react. Mira sprinted to the console. She scanned the controls, searching for the right command. Come on, she muttered. Then she found it. She slammed her fist on the emergency shutdown button. The energy core flickered. Sparks flew. The lights around them dimmed. A loud warning echoed through the ship. Power failure detected. The entire ship shook as systems started shutting down. Dren grinned. It's working. Mira turned to him. Now we get out of here. The alarm screamed as the ship lost control. The Zorath guards were in chaos, shouting orders, trying to fix the problem. Mira and Dren ran toward the hangar bay. Their escape was just beginning. Mira and Dren sprinted through the dimly lit corridors of the Zorath ship, their footsteps echoing against the metal floor. The emergency lights flickered, casting strange shadows along the walls. The alarms continued to blare, a high-pitched warning that the ship was in crisis. We don't have much time, Dren said, breathing heavily. The energy core is failing, but the backup systems will activate soon. We need to reach the hangar before that happens. Mira nodded, gripping the stolen energy weapon tightly. She could hear distant shouts and the sound of boots pounding against the floor. The Zorath were coming. They turned a corner and found themselves in a long hallway leading to the hangar bay. But just as they stepped forward, a group of Zorath guards appeared at the other end, weapons raised. There they are, one of the guards growled. Mira reacted instantly. She aimed her weapon and fired. A bright blue energy blast shot down the hall, striking one of the guards and sending him crashing into the wall. Dren grabbed her arm. Come on. They dashed into a side passage as the remaining guards fired back. Sparks flew as energy blasts hit the walls, scorching the metal. Mira and Dren ducked behind a crate, catching their breath. "We can't fight them all," Dren said. "We need another way." Mira scanned their surroundings. Then she spotted something, a ventilation shaft above them. It was small, but big enough to crawl through. "There," she pointed. "That should lead us to the hangar." Dren hesitated. "Are you sure?" "No," Mira admitted. "But we don't have a choice." Dren nodded. "Then let's move." Mira climbed up first, pulling herself into the narrow metal tunnel. The space was tight, the air warm and stale. Dren followed behind, his breathing heavy as he squeezed through. Below them, the Zorith guards were still searching. "They must have gone this way," one shouted. Mira held her breath as footsteps echoed beneath them. Then, silence. After a few tense moments, Mira whispered, "I think they're gone." They crawled forward, moving as quickly as possible. The shaft twisted and turned, but eventually a faint light appeared ahead. Mira peered through the vent and gasped. They had reached the hangar. The hangar bay was massive, filled with various ships and cargo containers. Several Zorith crew members were running around, trying to restore order after the power failure. Mira spotted a small transport ship near the far end. It was sleek, built for speed. "That's our way out," she whispered. Dren studied the hangar. "The guards will be watching for us." Mira nodded. "Then we need a distraction." She looked around, her mind racing. Then she saw it, a row of fuel barrels stacked near the wall. She grinned. "I have an idea." Mira carefully removed the vent cover and dropped down onto a stack of crates. Dren followed, moving silently. She aimed her weapon at the fuel barrels. "Get ready to run." Dren's eyes widened. "Are you?" Mira fired. The energy blast struck the barrels, and a massive explosion erupted. Fire and smoke filled the air as the shockwave sent Zorith crew members stumbling. The hangar was in chaos. "Now," Mira shouted. She and Dren sprinted toward the transport ship. The Zorith guards reacted too late. Some were still recovering from the explosion, while others were struggling to understand what had happened. Mira reached the ship's entrance and slammed her hand against the control panel. The door hissed open. "Get inside," she yelled. Dren jumped in, and Mira followed, sealing the door behind them. She rushed to the cockpit and scanned the controls. The Zorith language was unfamiliar, but the basic layout of the ship was similar to human designs. "Can you fly this thing?" Dren asked. Mira smirked. "Watch me." She pressed a series of buttons, and the engines roared to life. Outside, the Zorith guards finally reacted. They raised their weapons, preparing to fire. Mira gripped the controls. It was now or never. She pushed the throttle forward. The ship lurched upward, lifting off the hangar floor. A second later, it shot forward, speeding toward the open launch bay. Blaster fire filled the air as the Zorith tried to stop them. Mira weaved the ship through the chaos, dodging incoming fire. Then, with one final push, they burst out of the hangar and into open space. They were free. Mira let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Dren stared at the stars outside. "We did it." Mira grinned. "Yeah, but we're not safe yet." The Zorith ship was still behind them, and it wouldn't take long for them to recover. Dren nodded. "Then let's get as far away as possible." Mira adjusted the controls, setting a course for deep space. Their fight wasn't over. But for now, they had won. Mira gripped the controls tightly as the transport ship sped through the vast darkness of space. Stars streaked past the cockpit window, but she had no time to admire them. Behind them, the massive Zorith battleship was already recovering from the chaos they had left behind. "They're coming," Dren warned, his golden eyes fixed on the screen displaying the enemy ship. Red warning lights flashed as the Zorith vessel locked onto them. Mira gritted her teeth. I was hoping they'd be too busy fixing their ship. Dren checked the controls. They're charging their weapons. If they hit us, we won't survive. Mira's fingers danced over the panel, searching for anything useful. Does this ship have shields? Dren scanned the screen. Not strong ones. Mira cursed under her breath. Then we better not get hit. The Zoreth ship fired. A bright blue energy blast shot through space, heading straight for them. Mira yanked the controls, forcing the ship into a sharp roll. The energy blast missed by inches, the light flashing through the cockpit as it passed. Dren let out a breath. That was too close. Mira smirked. You haven't seen anything yet. She pushed the throttle forward. The transport ship shot ahead, weaving through the empty void. But the Zoreth ship was faster. It was closing the distance. They're gaining on us, Dren shouted. Mira's mind raced. They needed to escape, but how? Then she saw it. Ahead of them was an asteroid field, massive floating rocks drifting silently in space. It was dangerous, but it was also their only chance. Mira pointed. Hold on tight. Dren's eyes widened. You're not serious. Mira grinned. Completely serious. The ship dove into the asteroid field. Giant rocks floated in every direction, spinning slowly in the darkness. Some were the size of small moons, others no bigger than their ship. It was a maze of danger, but also the perfect place to lose their pursuers. Mira's hands were steady as she maneuvered the ship between the asteroids, dodging and weaving through the deadly obstacles. The Zoreth ship followed. They're still behind us, Dren warned. Mira's mind worked quickly. She needed to use the asteroids against them. Then she saw her opportunity. A massive asteroid floated ahead, split in two with a narrow gap in the middle. It was barely wide enough for their ship. Mira pointed. We're going through that. Dren's eyes went wide. Are you crazy? Mira grinned. A little. She pushed the throttle, sending the ship straight toward the gap. The asteroid walls loomed on both sides, their jagged edges dangerously close. The Zoreth ship hesitated for a second, just enough time. Mira's ship shot through the gap. The moment they cleared it, she yanked the controls and spun the ship upward, hiding behind a smaller asteroid. The Zoreth ship wasn't so lucky. It tried to follow, but the massive asteroid suddenly shifted. One of the spinning rocks slammed into the Zoreth ship's side, sending it into a wild spin. Dren stared at the screen. They're losing control. Mira grinned. Told you it would work. The Zoreth ship struggled to stabilize, but it was too late. The damage had been done. The battleship slowed, falling behind as they sped away. Silence filled the cockpit. Mira and Dren stared at the screen, watching as the enemy ship disappeared behind the asteroid field. Dren let out a deep breath. We did it. Mira leaned back in her seat, her heart still racing. Yeah, but they'll be back. Dren nodded. We need to find a safe place to land, somewhere to plan our next move. Mira checked the navigation screen. A nearby planet appeared on the display, a small, uninhabited world covered in thick jungles. She pointed. That's our best option. Dren hesitated. Are you sure it's safe? Mira smirked. Nope. But I'd rather take my chances with an unknown planet than with the Zoreth. Dren sighed but nodded. Then let's go. Mira adjusted the controls, setting their course toward the jungle planet. Their fight wasn't over yet. But for now, they had a moment to breathe. Mira guided the ship toward the jungle-covered planet, her hands steady on the controls. The atmosphere glowed bright orange as they entered, the ship shaking from the sudden friction. Dren held onto the seat beside her. Are you sure this thing will hold together? Mira smirked. We're about to find out. The transport ship broke through the thick clouds, revealing a vast green landscape below. Endless jungles stretched as far as the eye could see. Rivers of silver water snaked through the land, and strange bird-like creatures soared through the sky. Mira spotted a large clearing near one of the rivers. That looks like a good spot to land. She pulled the controls back, slowing the ship's descent. The engines roared as they hovered above the clearing, kicking up dust and leaves. Finally, with a gentle thud, the ship touched the ground. Mira let out a breath. We made it. Dren checked the scanners. No immediate threats, but this place is full of life. Mira unbuckled her seatbelt. Then let's see what we're dealing with. The ship's ramp lowered, and warm, humid air rushed inside. Mira stepped out first, her boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. The jungle smelled fresh, with a mix of damp soil and sweet, unknown flowers. Dren followed, his eyes scanning their surroundings. Towering trees with thick, twisting vines surrounded them. Strange glowing insects buzzed through the air, and the distant sounds of animals echoed through the forest. This place is alive, Dren muttered. Mira crouched, running her fingers through the dirt. And untouched. The Zoreth won't find us here easily. Dren nodded but looked uneasy. Still, we don't know what's out here. A sudden rustling sound made them both freeze. Mira's hand moved to the energy weapon at her side. We're not alone. From the shadows, a creature emerged. It was tall, covered in dark green scales that blended perfectly with the jungle. Its eyes were large and yellow, glowing faintly in the dim light. It had 4 strong limbs, each ending in sharp claws, and a long tail that flicked behind it. The creature sniffed the air, tilting its head as it studied them. Dren whispered, "Is it dangerous?" Mira kept her voice low. "I don't know, but let's not make it angry." The creature took a step closer, its movements slow and deliberate. It wasn't attacking, but it wasn't afraid either. Mira slowly lowered her weapon, showing she wasn't a threat. The creature blinked. Then, to their surprise, it made a deep, clicking sound, almost like it was speaking. Dren's eyes widened. "I think it's intelligent." Mira's heart pounded. "Then we need to be careful." The creature took another step forward, then suddenly stopped. Its ears twitched, and its head turned toward the trees. Then, without warning, it hissed and darted back into the jungle. Mira and Dren exchanged a look. "What scared it?" Dren asked. Mira gripped her weapon. "I don't know, but I have a bad feeling." A moment later, the answer came. A deep rumbling sound shook the ground beneath them. The trees in the distance shook violently, as if something massive was moving toward them. Mira's instincts screamed danger. "We need to get back to the ship. Now." Dren didn't argue. They turned and ran, their boots pounding against the ground. The rumbling grew louder. Whatever was coming, it was big. Mira reached the ramp first, slamming her hand against the controls. The door began to rise. Dren jumped inside just as the jungle behind them exploded with movement. A massive creature burst through the trees. It was at least 20 feet tall, with dark, armored skin that looked tougher than steel. Its 4 powerful legs shook the ground with every step, and its head was massive, filled with razor-sharp teeth. Mira barely had time to react before it charged straight at them. She dived into the ship, hitting the emergency close button. The ramp slammed shut just as the creature slammed into the side of the ship. The impact sent them tumbling to the floor. Dren groaned. "What was that?" Mira pulled herself up and ran to the cockpit. "Something that wants us off its planet." Outside, the beast roared, slamming into the ship again. The metal groaned under the pressure. The ship wasn't built for this kind of beating. Dren scrambled into the seat beside her. "We have to take off." Mira fired up the engines, her hands moving quickly over the controls. The ship rumbled as it powered up. The creature roared again, preparing to strike. Mira didn't wait. She pushed the throttle forward. The ship lurched upward, engines screaming. Outside, the beast swiped at them with one massive claw. But they were already rising. A second later, they shot into the sky, leaving the jungle behind. Inside the ship, Silence filled the air. Mira let out a shaky breath. That was too close. Dren stared at the screen, watching the planet shrink below them. So much for a safe place to land. Mira rubbed her forehead. Yeah, we need a new plan. Dren sighed. And fast, because I have a feeling the Zorath are still out there. Mira nodded. Their fight wasn't over yet. But no matter what, she wouldn't stop fighting. Mira guided the ship through space, her hands steady on the controls. The jungle planet was now a distant memory, but their troubles weren't over. Dren checked the radar. His face tensed. Bad news. Mira sighed. Let me guess. The Zorath. Dren nodded. They found us again. On the screen, a red dot flashed. The Zorath battleship was closing in. Mira clenched her jaw. They weren't ready for another fight. The jungle planet had nearly destroyed their ship, and they had no weapons strong enough to face the enemy head-on. Dren tapped the controls. We can't outrun them. The engines took too much damage. Mira's mind raced. Running wasn't an option. Fighting wasn't an option. They needed a plan. Her eyes landed on the navigation screen. A strange symbol flickered on the edge of the map. A nearby asteroid belt. Mira pointed. That's our chance. Dren frowned. Hiding in an asteroid belt. That's crazy. Mira smirked. Maybe. But it's our only chance. The ship turned sharply, heading straight for the asteroid field. Behind them, the Zorath battleship adjusted course, following closely. Dren's hands tightened on the seat. I hope you know what you're doing. Mira grinned. Me too. They entered the asteroid belt. Massive rocks floated in every direction, some spinning slowly, others colliding with each other. It was a maze of death, but also the perfect place to lose their pursuers. Mira's fingers moved quickly over the controls, weaving the ship between the floating debris. Dren stared at the screen. The Zorath ship is still coming. Mira gritted her teeth. Then we'll make them regret it. She steered the ship toward a cluster of fast-moving asteroids. Behind them, the Zorath ship tried to follow, but it was too big. It couldn't move as fast. Suddenly, an asteroid slammed into the side of the Zorath ship. Dren gasped. It hit them. Mira didn't slow down. She had a plan. She steered the ship toward a particularly large asteroid. It had a deep crater in its surface, just big enough for their ship to hide inside. Mira pushed the throttle forward. The ship shot toward the crater. Dren's eyes widened. You're not serious. Before he could finish, they dived straight into the crater. The ship lurched to a stop inside the massive rock, hidden from sight. Mira quickly powered down the engines. Silence filled the cockpit. Dren held his breath. Did they see us? Mira watched the radar. Outside, the Zorath ship slowly passed by. Dren clenched his fists. Come on. Keep moving. Seconds felt like hours. Then, the red dot on the radar moved away. Mira finally exhaled. We did it. Dren collapsed into his seat. That was the craziest thing I've ever done. Mira smirked. You'll get used to it. The ship remained hidden in the asteroid for a while. Dren checked the systems. The Zorath are gone. For now. Mira nodded. But they won't stop. We need to take the fight to them. Dren frowned. How? They have a battleship. We have this. He gestured at their damaged ship. Mira's eyes narrowed. They couldn't run forever. They needed a way to end this fight. Then, an idea formed in her mind. She turned to Dren. What if we disable their ship? Dren blinked. Disable? How? Mira tapped the controls, pulling up a map of the Zorath ship's schematics. Every battleship has a power core. If we take it out, they're stranded. Dren stared at her. You want to sneak onto a Zorath battleship and sabotage their power core. Mira smirked. That's the plan. Dren groaned. That's insane. Mira's eyes gleamed. Yeah, but it might be the only way to stop them. Dren sighed but nodded. All right, let's do this. Mira turned back to the controls, her determination stronger than ever. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was time to end the chase. Mira tightened the straps of her lightweight spacesuit. This was the most dangerous plan she had ever attempted, but it was their only chance. If they could disable the Zoreth battleship's power core, the enemy would be stranded, giving them time to escape for good. Dren checked his equipment. We sneak in, plant the charge on the core, and get out fast. No mistakes. Mira nodded. Exactly. Let's move. Their ship drifted silently toward the massive Zoreth battleship, which floated just outside the asteroid belt. Its dark metal surface was covered in glowing red lights, and its powerful cannons moved slowly, scanning for threats. Mira activated the stealth system. The ship turned nearly invisible against the blackness of space. Dren took a deep breath. We better hope this works. Mira smirked. It will. They approached a maintenance hatch on the lower side of the Zoreth ship. It was a weak point, unguarded, and rarely checked. Mira lined up their small ship, moving in carefully. One mistake, and they would be detected. The hatch was locked, but Mira had studied Zoreth technology. She quickly overrode the system, and the hatch slid open with a soft hiss. Dren raised an eyebrow. Impressive. Mira grinned. Let's go. They slipped inside, moving through the dimly lit corridors. The Zoreth ship was massive, but Mira had memorized the layout. They had to reach the power core without being seen. Dren whispered, "Guards ahead." Mira peeked around the corner. Two Zoreth soldiers stood in front of a security door. Their reptilian eyes scanned the hallway, weapons ready. Mira pulled out a small device. "We'll distract them." She activated the device and tossed it down another corridor. A loud clanking noise echoed through the metal halls. The guards immediately turned and ran toward the sound. Mira and Dren rushed past them, slipping through the security door. Inside, the power core hummed with energy. A massive glowing sphere pulsed in the center of the room, surrounded by cables and control panels. Dren set the explosives near the base of the core. This will overload their systems and shut down the whole ship. Mira nodded. Set the timer for 2 minutes. That's all we need. Dren activated the timer. Done. They turned to leave, but the door slammed shut. An alarm blared through the ship. Mira cursed. They know we're here. A voice echoed through the speakers, a deep, menacing voice. You thought you could sabotage my ship and escape. Mira's heart pounded. It was the Zoreth commander. We have your ship locked in our tractor beam, the voice continued. You have nowhere to run. Dren's fists clenched. What now? Mira's mind raced. If they were trapped, they had to change the plan. She looked at the explosives. They needed to explode sooner. She grabbed the timer and reduced it to 30 seconds. Dren's eyes widened. Are you crazy? That's not enough time to escape. Mira grabbed his wrist. We're not escaping through the door. She pointed up. A vent in the ceiling. Dren understood instantly. They climbed onto a nearby console, pried open the vent, and crawled inside. The countdown ticked down. 10, 9, 8. The Zoreth guards burst into the power core room. Stop them, one shouted. 7, 6, 5. Mira and Dren crawled through the vents as fast as they could. 4, 3, 2. A massive boom shook the ship. The power core exploded in a flash of light. The whole ship went dark. Mira and Dren tumbled out of the vents into a hallway, just as the emergency lights flickered weakly. Dren gasped. It worked. Mira pulled him up. No time to celebrate. Move. With the power out, the security systems failed. Mira and Dren rushed back to the maintenance hatch. Their ship was still there, but the Zoreth tractor beam was offline. They jumped inside, Mira firing up the engines. Dren cheered. Let's get out of here. The Zorath battleship floated helplessly, its systems completely disabled. Mira pulled the throttle. Their ship soared away into space. As the stars stretched before them, Dren let out a deep breath. "We actually did it," he said, laughing in disbelief. Mira smirked. "Told you we would." The Zorath were defeated, at least for now. They were free. Mira set a course for deep space, a new beginning, a new adventure, and this time, no one would ever chase them again. The end.